can see Onyinye has left her Gmail. Let's all be leaving our emails in the chat box so that we can get our certificates at the end of the day to add it to our continuous professional development certificate. It's good to always have knowledge on what is happening in the language industry. So just as I was saying, I mean, this topic we are going to be discussing today is something that it came up in the Mati community, and it was quite interesting to see the opinions of others. So let's do well to join the Mati link when it's shared in the platform. Let's do well to click on it and join. So this topic is a thought-provoking one. I'm sure you have seen it around. It's on how can translators balance cultural sensitivity with personal beliefs when translating LGBTQ related documents. Now, in our African context, we realize that translators find themselves usually navigating, I mean, a really complex, let me say, web of cultural norms and personal beliefs and professional ethics. So this is especially true when we are working with documents like that's related to LGBT. And this subject of LGBTQ is one that is very contentious in many parts of our continent. And I'm sure most of us can attest to that. We have some regions making strides in recognizing LGBTQ rights, and there are others that continue to hold their views that clash with the global human rights standards. But today, what we are going to be doing is to, give you different social contexts in different countries and how they have impacted the translation of LGBTQ related documents. And we are not only going to do that, but we are going to explore the challenges and also find ways to balance respect for local cultural sensitivity and while maintaining our professional integrity as translators and interpreters. So yes, we have an incredible lineup of speakers today, and I'm sure you have seen them already. They have their cameras turned on. We have Patient in the house. We have Isabella. We have Christian. I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, and you are going to know why we brought them on here, because they have expertise when it comes to the topic we are dealing with. And this does not mean that we are left, behind. The viewers are here, our participants, you are here because you want to also learn something and you want to also contribute your opinion. So let's kindly do that when the time comes. So for now, I'm going to give the floor to Patient to introduce himself to the participants. Patient, you are welcome once again.
Hello, thanks a lot for accepting me here, dear Rebecca. Nice to meet you. As I was saying a couple of minutes ago, I'm eager to meet you in person. Definitely, we had a lot of interaction, but this is still an online meeting, and this is the tradition for now. Many people meet only online. So my name is Patient Xavier Nong. I'm a translator. I used to insist on the fact that I'm also an entrepreneur and a coach. I'm the founder of Speed Expertise, and I love translating. Translating is not just a profession, it's a passion for me. And I love crafting content that resonates with varied and multilingual audiences so that people can feel comfortable reading what I've translated or what I've transcreated, because I'm also a passionate transcreator. I'm not just a translator, so to say. And this LGBTQ issue is a very crucial one, and I'm delighted to share my humble opinion in the topic. So feel free to ask anything, and I'm ready to share my presentation.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you here, and it's great to know that you are ready to share your presentation with us. It's nice. I've been butchering your name all this while. So his name is Patient. For the Francophones here, I'm sure you can relate. It's Patient. So let's try and then refer to him as such when we are asking our questions.
No, but even Patient works, eh? Even Patient works. Don't worry.
Patient works. That's fine. Thank you so much. And to the only lady we have in our sweet panel of speakers today is Isabella. And Isabella, introduce yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Rebecca and the Cabot Group for inviting me. My name is Isabella Massardo. and I am a I'm a content strategist at GALA, which stands for Globalization and Localization Association, and we are a nonprofit trade organization. And in my previous life, I was a translator, a freelance translator, a trainer, a copywriter, post editor, terminologist, you name it, I did it. I have some 30 years of experience in the translation and localization industry. And let me just say, I'm very happy to be here. I accepted immediately as soon as Rebecca sent me her email. And then I thought, do I have anything to contribute to this? Because I live in the Netherlands, and LGBTQIA issues are almost non-existent. So, but Rebecca convinced me, and we found an angle of my presentation that I hope will be interesting. But in any case, I'm looking forward to the conversation with all of you.
Okay, it's great to have you here, Isabella. Just as I mentioned, we are going to be giving you various social contexts. That is why Isabella is here. I'm sure you heard her say that LGBTQ is not a problem in her context. So she's going to, give us insight into that. Now we have Christian here. Christian also provided wonderful insight during our discussion on the Mati community. That is why he's here. So we always advise that, members of the Mati community, we engage with posts that is put on there, so that when it comes to issues like this, we can invite you to also be a speaker. So Christian, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much, Rebecca, and good afternoon again to Isabella and Patient. It's a real honor and pleasure being here. I'm intervening today as a translator who has faced LGBT related issues, to share my views on the topic objectively and also learn from others' experience. I believe that among the participants also, many of us, if we are here, is because one way or the other, either directly or indirectly, we have been faced with this topic, and we will be glad to learn from the experience of others also. So it's an honor being here, and I look forward to exchanging and learning from others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian, for honoring our invitation. So just as we've always been doing, for the first part of our KLS talk, what we are going to be doing is to be listening to the presentations of these wonderful speakers. We are going to speak on various experiences that they have relating to this interesting topic. So let's just, prepare ourselves to leave our questions in the chat box, to even engage when the time comes. Afterwards, we are going to have a discussion, because this is an issue that applies to all of us. This is not the time for us to be silent. I want to listen to everyone's opinion on this topic. We are here for a discussion. So let's prepare ourselves, prepare to, contribute to this topic. So we are going to dive right into the presentation. We are going to start with Patient first. Patient is going to take the floor and then start with his presentation. Afterwards, we are going to have Isabella. So, Patient. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Well, how can translators balance cultural sensitivity with personal beliefs when translating LGBTQ related documents? So I will move on. The first thing I would like to say is that translators, as we are all here, translators, interpreters, this is a generic term that can be applied to even interpreters, terminologists, and everyone else in the localization industry. Translators are open-minded professionals serving global clients who are dealing with global issues. And among these issues, we have the LGBTQ, which is, so we'll dive into a couple of, we'll hover over some terms, some key terms. That is LGBTQ first, which is a movement promoting the rights of lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders, and queers. But as Isabella mentioned it, rightly mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, there are so many other statuses that can be added to it. That's why the new term is LGBTQ+, because there are asexuals, there are intersexuals, and all of them. This the LGBTQ term or movement encompasses several gender identities, sexual orientations, and lifestyles. And when we take a look at the concept itself, when you search for it maybe on the internet, you will notice that especially for the African context, all these varieties of identities and sexual orientation and lifestyles are usually narrowed down to homosexuality. This is put in quote because this is an outdated term in the LGBT milieu, where they prefer the LGBTQ term we are talking about. So the other term we're discussing is the term cultural sensitivity, which is defined by the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare as the willingness, ability, and sensitivity required to understand people with different backgrounds, providing cultural sensitive services, meaning to provide services flexible to the needs of diverse clients. And now, in our translation context, cultural sensitivity involves understanding and respecting the cultural context of both the source and target languages. So a translator must be aware of cultural nuances and avoid misrepresentations or stereotypes. And we'll see later on why it's important to avoid such misrepresentations and stereotypes, because the LGBTQ is globally, many people tend to generalize everything related to the LGBTQ. So the third term we're going to talk about is personal beliefs. I mean, a personal belief is what a person holds as being true. And now, long-lasting beliefs about what is important to a person become what we call values. So when someone has his own beliefs and that they have been inside for long, those become his or her values. And that also is to be taken into consideration as a professional. Because before being professionals, we are first of all human beings. The fourth term is professional ethics. Professional ethics are principles that govern the behavior of a person or group in a business environment. And in the localization industry, commitment to ethics involves, among others, upholding accuracy, fidelity, objectivity, and impartiality, and preserving, of course, confidentiality. But we should note that upholding objectivity and impartiality for translators implies resisting the urge to insert our own personal beliefs or biases into our work. And this is very important because translation has a human dimension, a personal dimension when we translate. So now, what are some practical steps we would like to recommend for people who want to navigate or to balance cultural sensitivity, professional ethics with personal beliefs when dealing with LGBTQ-related documents? From my own perspective and my own experience, I noticed that the LGBTQ content can be divided into three categories. We have the neutral category, where the text or the LGBTQ members are mentioned alongside members of other minority groups to promote inclusion. And each category of LGBT content is associated with a level of personal engagement. And that neutral LGBT content category seems to be to engage to have a minimum to zero personal engagement in general. We mention in general because people vary and their nature may vary as well. But in general, when someone deals with neutral LGBTQ content, their personal engagement is zero or so. So the next level is informative category. That is when the LGBTQ movement is described in a content or in a text, explicitly or not, to help people understand what it is all about, especially for us Africans. And the third level is when the LGBTQ content has to do with texts that like tend to recruit some adepts. So it's very important for a translator or a linguist to know these various categories, because the various categories and the personal engagement that they imply will also help him or her identify if they are willing to take one task or another. And that's why the first step is getting acquainted with the categories of LGBTQ content and their respective levels of personal engagement. Once you have identified it, you are now ready for the second step, because we have 3 steps to help people balance their personal beliefs, professional ethics with their values. So the next step is being courageous enough to accept a project or not based on the level of personal engagement it involves. The Dalai Lama said, open your arms to change, but don't let go of your values. And that's why we mentioned values earlier, saying that the values are long-lasting beliefs. There might be true or false, right or wrong, but it's not easy to detach someone from their values. That's why the person should be open to change. And LGBTQ appears as a change, a drastic change in the African environment. We should be open to that change, even if we stick to our values. And James A. Garfield says, the men who succeed best in public life are those who take the risk of standing by their own convictions. So after considering in which category a text belongs to, that's you have to do it by asking the client an excerpt of the material, so that you can check it. You can check the materials thoroughly. Make sure to be able to say yes or no based on the level of personal engagement. And if you say yes, your yes should remain yes no matter the outcome till the end of the project. But in case the nature of the material will make it challenging for you to remain balanced while translating, to remain ethical, to commit to ethics, then it will be better for you to not be afraid to say politely to the client that, please, this project is not mine. I will take another one. Maybe I'm ready for another project, but this one, please, I can't take it. You are not compelled to express all the reasons that motivate your choice, but you should be honest enough and courageous enough to say no if you are not ready to take it. And if you are ready to take it, of course, you have to be courageous as well to accept it, no matter the category we saw earlier. Now, the third step, when you have accepted a task, translating LGBT content or materials, you are obliged to showcase utmost professionalism and commitment to ethics. And you can do it by doing this couple of other things. You should master the ever-evolving LGBTQ plus terminology and phraseology to ensure accurate and unoffensive renditions depending on the context. For instance, we have put the references at the end of our presentation. In LGBTQ context, you should avoid outdated terms. Initially in my presentation, I talk about homosexuality, which is no longer the term in use in this context. So if you are translating a document on LGBTQ, you should avoid using homosexuality because they don't like it, definitely. So there is also this idea of sex. We don't talk about sex or birth assigned sex because they talk about sexual identity. We no more talk about gender role, but instead gender expression, transsexualism, but gender incongruence, biological or real male or female. No, this is no more applicable. We talk about cisgender, and gender care is outdated, and we talk about non-binary. So that is one of the things that we should master to handle such a task or such task with the maximum of professionalism and ethics. And we should also opt for inclusive pronouns. Maybe if you are working in English, instead of saying he or she, it's better to use they or them. We even share with you a link where you can get familiar with LGBTQ inclusive terminology and phraseology to show that you are a professional, a real professional. And also, the next step when you accept the job is that you should search for the best existing equivalents in the target languages involved, especially non-European languages. Because in Africa, we did a small survey and we noticed that the way LGBTQ tends to be rendered, it has to do with explicitation. There's no proper term, there's no direct equivalent to the LGBTQ concept, because the LGBTQ concept encompasses, as we said earlier, several lifestyles, identities, and realities. So now, how to identify the right approach to render the LGBTQ term in like an African language? Maybe what we may suggest is that you should identify what is it talking about, what does the term refer in this particular context. Is it about sexual orientation? Is it about sexual identity? Is it about generic inclusion? Then, based on the specific meaning that the term used in the text is supposed to bear, then we have to identify the correct way, the most appropriate way to render it in the given target language. And at times, they will imply coining a new and not a new non-offensive term. Because in several African cultures and languages, LGBTQ is simply referred to as homosexuality, which is not appropriate. And many African languages tend to translate it in a very reproving way, a very explicitation. So you should make sure you are choosing the right or the best rendition based on the context. So the last way of showcasing utmost professionalism and commitment to ethics when you're translating LGBTQ content has to do with going the extra mile, standing out as an expert and consultant for our clients. We do not just need to translate content entrusted to us because we want to be paid. Instead, we have to be ready to advise our clients on the current state of LGBT rights in the target country. For instance, if the client wants to address the target base in Cameroon, I will tell him that in Cameroon, the LGBTQ rights are not...
Au Cameroun, les droits LGBTQ.
Okay. So the LGBTQ rights, sorry, I listened to the interpreter at that time and this interrupted me a bit. And I was saying that in Cameroon, their rights are not liberalized. The LGBTQ are still criminalized in Cameroon, and he should make sure that the way he formulates his or her idea, it will not sound inappropriate or offensive for his target audience. And to be a solution or to appear as an expert for my client, I can discuss several translation options with the client to avoid culturally inappropriate renditions and mistranslations. And I should also offer my expertise to provide constructive feedback when the target content is ready, maybe before it's published, so that the client can see that you can see my commitment to accuracy, inclusivity, and ethics. That said, I'm almost done, and I would like to share this Bible quote from 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17, part A, where it says in the New World Translation of our Holy Scriptures, honor men of all sorts. And in the today's English version, it says respect everyone, which means that as individuals, we each hold the right to our personal beliefs regarding the LGBTQ community, just as they have the freedom to define their own sexual identity. However, As conscientious professionals and compassionate human beings, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that our personal perspectives never foster prejudice against LGBTQ members, whether within or beyond the bounds of our professional engagements. So I'm ready for any questions, and many thanks to Carbon Language Services for contacting me for this presentation. I hope it brought some interesting aspects that we will be able to discuss later on. We can network anytime, anywhere. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Speed Expertise is on YouTube. So thanks a lot. Many thanks. We have the references. I can provide the PDF version of my presentation so that you can go forward, dive deeper in the various topics. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Patient. Thank you so. I think we should be even giving him some emojis, clapping emojis. That was a wonderful presentation. It really was. What really stood out for me was the quote from Dalai Lama that we should open our arms to change, but we shouldn't let go of our values. As translators, yes, we have our personal beliefs, and I'm sure we have learned something from the presentation of Patient. There's a question here, but I'm thinking we should take all the presentations. Since it's just one. The question says, it's from Dudu Kone. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. He's from Senegal. He says, what do you think or advise Muslim interpreters who reject LGBT clients, saying that it is banned by Islam? So if they help them, that is like they accept LGBTQ. So I think what he's trying to say is, what do you think about Muslim interpreters who reject LGBTQ clients, saying that it is banned by their religion to help them? Because it looks like if you help them, then you are kind of accepting LGBTQ.
Am I to answer the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks a lot for this question. Be it a Muslim or any religion, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. What I may say is that the categories I've listed, there are 3 of them, will determine your choice. For instance, if you are translating in behalf of people, people who are suffering from poor treatment because they are Black or because they are part of other minorities, will you not translate such a content? If you are likely to translate it, I think it's possible to translate because you are helping those people to be included, because that's what is called inclusion. Everyone, we are all human beings. So no matter how, we are supposed to be included in the process and the ongoing progress of humanity. Now, the choice of supporting LGBTQ as a personal belief, or a personal value, is up to each of us. So you are free to accept it or not, as they are free to choose their sexual identity. Now, if your religion bans it and tells you that you are not supposed to do it, then if you are faithful to your religion, then you have to obey that. If you want to go beyond the rules of your religion, feel free. But this is, first of all, a personal issue. What I think is that translating a material doesn't mean I'm supporting what is being doing there. For instance, you can be translating a document about atomic bomb. Does it mean that nuclear bomb? Does it mean that you are supporting the use they are doing of that nuclear bomb? I'm not sure that's true. It's just because maybe you are trying to learn how it works, or you know how it works, and you are sharing your knowledge with those who are using it. And you are also free to say no. That's why I also said that you have to be courageous enough to say no. Please, this one is not mine. It's not my cup of tea. Please, I will decline it. And do that politely, because your client deserves respect. I don't know if I have...
I hope your question is answered. Dudu from Senegal. I hope your question is answered. So if we have any other questions, you can drop them in the chat box. For those of us who want to raise our hands, I mean, you are welcome to do that. We want to hear from everyone before we take the next presentation. Our time is is moving very fast. So we want to take all questions as fast as we can. But I mean, we can also go on with the presentation and be still looking out for your questions. So as I said, the only lady in the midst of the panelists today is Isabella, and she's going to give us a wonderful presentation. We are going to hear from a different social context. Patient has given us his context, and now we are going to be listening to Isabella. So yes, I think let's welcome her with some, let's make the chat box fun. Let's just not just be there, be silent. I mean, drop some clapping emojis for her in the chat box as she starts.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So as I said, let me go back. No, it doesn't allow me to go back. Okay, here we go. As I said, I'm content strategist at Gala, but before that, in my previous life, I was a freelance translator. I was born in Italy, and then after finishing my studies in 1988, I moved to the Netherlands. And so, as I said to Rebecca, in the Netherlands, LGBTQIA+ issues are not really issues because the legislation and the anti-discrimination legislation is protecting the community. But as a translator who moved from one country to another, I did find a lot of cultural differences. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that and how I had to navigate that. And I'll also say something about the LGBTQ issues, of course. So I moved to the Netherlands in 1998, very important year for politics, for the IT sector. There was the year of the first computer bug. I don't know if any of you is old enough to remember that. And I had a degree in Russian and Russian literature and a specialization in Russian theater. And what do? I moved to the Netherlands, of course. I didn't speak the language. Well, I could do my grocery shopping, but I couldn't really do anything else. So besides learning the language, I had to learn the culture, of course. And as there are many linguists in the audience, I'm sure that you know how difficult that can be. It's a real steep learning curve. So here are some of the cultural differences that I had to navigate from the beginning. So first of all, religion. I come from Italy, where Catholic religion, Catholic Church is present everywhere and has an impact on our lives. But in the Netherlands, we have a secular society. So there are Catholics, there are Protestants, there are many varieties of Protestant churches. You can find a Catholic church building next to a Protestant church building, and they all live together. But they don't really impact the social life. Another difference that I saw was frugality. And that was also really important as a freelance translator when I had to, for example, negotiate my rate with clients who are very frugal, very parsimonious, very careful with their money. Another thing that I had to adjust to was directness. The Dutch like a straightforward style, to the point that sometimes they even seem rude. But that's what they like. They see your straightforwardness as a sign of honesty, sign of trust, and they expect you to be direct. While in Italy, we are much more diplomatic, we're much more soft. We try not to be too direct. We use so many words to say something in as delicate a way as possible. Of course, formality was also important in Italy. If you're a doctor, a professor, an engineer, an architect, you want everybody to know. In Holland, in the Netherlands, I should say, nobody cares about your title. Every structure is very horizontal. So you can call your boss by his first name, for example. So when I translated text from Dutch into Italian, I had to remember, use as many words as possible, be as delicate as possible, remember titles, remember politeness. Another thing in my that many of my interpreting colleagues have told me about is the importance of keeping your emotions under control. So this is something that the Dutch do very well. But for Italians, emotions, if you have an emotion, you put it out there. So many of my colleagues who are interpreters found themselves interpreting for Italian people, for example, in a court of justice, with the Italian client shouting, crying, being very agitated, etc. And that was a challenge for, an interpreter to be able to still convey the message in a very neutral way without being kind of sucked in by the situation. Of course, timeliness is important, both in business and when you deliver your translation. And so just imagine all these very general cultural linguistic differences, how they could be impacting your work as a translator and as a business owner, as a small business owner. I think I skipped. No, here we are. Another thing that I had to be facing and learning about are stereotypes. So I translated a lot of marketing text, a lot of promotional text, and from Dutch to an Italian perspective. So in Dutch, for example, gender roles are not so strict. You can easily find a father who is going to be the house husband, and the woman that goes out to work while the father stays home and take care of the children. Same sex is legislated. It is approved. It was introduced in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. There is no hierarchy. There is very little pay gap, almost non-existent, I would say. Now, although Italy has a strong feminist movement, you will encounter all of these challenges, especially when you translate marketing text. Now, I sign an NDA with all of my clients, so I cannot show you the work that I did. But I can tell you, for example, of a text that was meant to sell, I think something like cleaning products and products for the house. And the Italian text had an image of the woman as an angel of the house. And so the product was aimed at the woman so that she was cleaning her house, keeping her family clean and safe and everything. Now, if you take an image like that and you offer it to the Dutch public, you're going to be in trouble because it won't be accepted. It's not, genders are not so strict. Roles within the society are not so strict. So that's going to be a problem. And that was going to be a very big problem. The same for other stereotypes, like children will play the superhero, girls will be the princesses, girl will play with dolls, boys will play with cars. So again, in many marketing texts, I had to adapt not just the copy, but also be some kind of cultural consultant for my clients and help them find the right images for either the Dutch society, the Dutch public, or the Italian public. And then, of course, one of the many questions that have been discussed recently, both in the Italian and the Dutch press, is what makes a woman, right? We all remember the Algerian female boxer, Imane Khalif. So if you look at what the Italian press wrote, it was a disaster. It was a drama. The Dutch press was much more pragmatic. The question in the Dutch press was, okay, how can we make sport more inclusive? How can we make sport more inclusive for all genders and for all bodies? So there was this pragmatic approach and inclusive approach, which you can't find in the Italian society and Italian press in general. Now, when it comes to LGBTQ issues, as I said, the Netherlands is a secular country. It's a secular society. So religion won't have much of an impact in that. There is a small political party with one seat in the parliament, but they're very, very quiet about LGBTQ plus issues. While Italy, as I said, with Roman Catholic tradition, LGBTQ issues are still very much discussed, and the church still has a kind of an impact and is a social force in a very conservative way. Now, in the Netherlands, as I said, legal rights for the LGBTQ community are a fact, but when you translate, for example, legal text for an Italian audience, you will have to make sure that you offer more context, because some legislations are not available in Italy, they're not implemented in Italy. So you will have to be sure to find the right context, the right legal terminology as well, and provide much more information, for example. And the same goes for other issues like same-sex marriage, adoption by a single mother, or adoption by a same-sex couple. You will find there are difficulties in translating texts that talk about end of life, euthanasia. You will find difficulties in translating legal text, for example, or even medical text about abortion, interruption of a pregnancy, because while the Dutch are very much straightforward, the Italian will ask you to use a more sensitive, a more subdued terminology and style. All this to say that I definitely agree when Patient said at the beginning of his presentation that as a translator, we are supposed to build bridges, right? And we do that with communication, and we do that with language. Language is our technology, is the best technology that we have at our disposal, to be honest. So I wanted to spend a moment to talk about inclusive language, which is something that we've been working on at Gala Global. So, of course, when you look at it from a grammatical point of view, I'm sure that those of you who speak French or Spanish know that it's a big problem to make sure that your text is gender inclusive, right? We have words with suffix, and suffix can indicate that the word is female or male. And how do you do that? How do you keep that gender inclusivity, the gender neutrality in a text when you have a language that is so grammatically rich? For example, in Italy, they found a solution that's very much discussed and not really approved, but it's the schwa, which is this vowel sound that is present in the International Phonetic Alphabet. And they add it as a suffix to make a word neutral, right? So instead of using the suffix for female or male, they use the schwa. It's a solution that it's a bit discussed, and it is used in written text, but of course it's not used in spoken language. And then, of course, language is always evolving. So it is very important, I think, for translators, linguists, but also organization, language service providers, or organization, local authorities, national authorities, to start thinking about inclusive language and inclusive terminology. So let's be aware of our bias. First of all, let's be aware of our prejudices, apologies, and let's start gathering language and terms and information. Let's start connecting with the communities, whether it's, about feminist issues, whether it's about LGBTQA issues, whether it is about disability. Let's not forget that language accessibility doesn't mean only keeping in mind, gay rights, feminist rights, but there's also the disabled community. They need to be shown the same respect, right? So one thing that, for example, translators and other organizations can do, language service providers, is make use of the correct pronouns when you translate a text about people. When you start looking around, you can also start thinking about creating a database of inclusive language and terminology. You can do so by working with the communities, looking at text. Patients show that there's a variety of resources online available. That's a very good starting point. And if you're a organization that wants to start building your own inclusive language program, I was just mentioning that Gala Global has a special interest group. And the group has been focusing on inclusive language and terminology, how to get started. They created an infographic with 9 steps. And by going through the 9 steps, you can start implementing your program and make your documents, your e-learning programs, any type of communication that you might have much more inclusive. So I hope this helped a little bit. Let me stop. Okay. Hope this helped a little bit. And yeah, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Wow, that was so interesting, Isabella. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So glad you came. I think before anyone will even speak, I have my question. I was wondering, you mentioned that even interpreting or translating documents, I think for the Italians, even on this of LGBTQ, you realize that there are some terms that are used that, I mean, they do not subscribe to it in their cultural context. So is it that they have a list of terminology, I mean, created that you as a translator, you should be acquainted with before you can translate?
Oh, well, if you look online, there are a few organizations and also a few freelance translators who have been doing some research on what kind of terms would be acceptable for the LGBTQ community, the feminist community, the disabled community, etc. So if you look, and I'll be happy to send you a list of these resources. I know there are also people who write newsletters about this. But I think the most important thing is to connect with these communities and ask for their feedback. Make them become your quality assurance evaluators. You know, in the translation workflow, in the localization workflow, there's a step that's called quality evaluation, right? And it's always done by a human. So why not connect with these communities and start working with them and create your own database of terms. And of course, some languages are easier than others. I mean, English is definitely easier because if you look at the word from the suffix of a word, you don't know whether it's male or female, right? I think it's different for Italian, it's different for French, Spanish, etc. I can give you a simple example. You have chairman, chairwoman. In Dutch, it's one word. It's voorzitter. Much easier, right? In Italian, I would have to be careful and maybe use the schwa if I don't want to offend anyone, or maybe put a sentence in an impersonal, passive structure. You have to be creative, basically.
Okay. So there's a question in the chat box which says, what if LGBTQ client refuses to be supported? In this case, refuses translation by a non-LGBTQ person. So in such a case,
that's a very good question, actually. That's a very good question. And we had a case like that in the Netherlands, of all things. There was I don't remember which writer had written in his book in English, and it was translated in Dutch by a non-LGBTQ translator, literary translator. And there was a lot of noise, of course. So the book was translated again, and this time it was translated by a Dutch writer who had also won the International Booker Prize, by the way. And she was assigned that translation because she is a trans person. So yeah, it's possible, definitely. Do I think that it's a question of cultural appropriation? I don't know. To be honest, I'm not the right person to decide that, but yeah.
But in such a case, what would you propose?
What would I propose?
Yes.
If the
Because
client says, I don't want an LGBTQ person, well, I think you need, as Patient said, need to be faithful to your beliefs and do the right thing. I think I'll leave it to that.
It's quite interesting that we are speaking on a topic which says how to balance this, and we are thinking it would rather come from the other way around, where the translator who is non-LGBTQ is going to refuse translating. But here's the case: one who is rather LGBTQ is refusing translation from a non-LGBTQ. I've seen Patient nodding his head. I don't know, Patient, do you want to respond to this before we take our last presentation from Christian?
Well, I think Isabella said what I could have said. You said the client is the one who has decided that a non-LGBTQ translator cannot handle his task. So there is no choice. He has decided. The client is king, definitely. So you cannot be arguing the client who tells you that you will not translate my material. How come that you can start arguing with such a client? That makes no sense. You can just ask him why. You can learn from it, because I consider it as an entrepreneur, I consider it as a, in quotes, a failure. And you have the right to ask the client, please, why do you believe that I can't handle this? Because I have this track record of translations that I have handled for these LGBTQ clients. You can name them if you have the right to do so. You can tell them that I have experience to do that. I've done so for this client, and they are very happy, or they were very happy with my work. This can help the client understand that, no, you have the ethics, you have the impartiality they need the translator to have, even if you are a non-LGBTQ. Think that's an approach. But if the guy or the girl says that never will you translate this my document, you cannot do anything else than dropping the issue.
That's the client is always king, right?
Yes, sure. Thanks.
Wow, interesting comment. But I'm still wondering. I mean, I have a lot of questions going on in my head. I'm just wondering. So, when is the other way around and the translator refuses to translate? That is why we are this. I mean, this entire topic is here. We're having this discussion today. The translator refuses. You realize that then the issue of, I mean, inclusivity is raised. I mean, there's that kind of issue of, okay, why are you not, why don't you want to translate? I mean, they are supposed to be included. And here's the case: one is refusing a translator who is non-LGBTQ to translate just because they do not, I mean, belong to that kind of group or anything of that sort.
Well, I usually refuse the translation in my times. A couple of times it was not about LGBTQ issues; it was about other topics that I thought they were not within my belief system. But I don't translate about documents that promote war, that promote injustice. I don't translate about documents that encourage hate towards certain groups. I refuse text from the tobacco industry because I think that smoking is bad for you. You can do it as much as you want, but don't tell me that it's good for your health, because it's not. But yeah, it's difficult for me to reply to this question, because it's never been an issue in the country where I live, and I hope it won't be an issue for anyone very soon. So.
Interesting.
If I may suggest something, Rebecca, I think it will be more interesting for Christian to go ahead with his own presentation, so that at the end, maybe there are some answers lying in his own presentation. And at the end of the day, if the three presentations didn't bring out the answers that you are looking for, then the three of us can work together to bring the maximum insights to you. Christian, what do you think?
Exactly. So I think we'll take Christian's presentation then. There are so many interesting comments in the chat box. So Christian, you have the floor. We want to finish and then dive into the discussion proper.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm sharing my presentation. Can you see it?
Not yet, please.
Okay, so thank you so much for this opportunity of sharing on this very interesting topic. I believe that a lot has been said already, so I will focus more my presentation on sharing the African perspective because so far Mr. Patient and Miss Isabella have shared various perspectives. Patient explained how to navigate some of this complexity practically, and Isabella, which is in an environment that is LGBT tolerant, also share how the experiences were in the Netherlands. So I'm coming from a context with the African perspective where, the question about even tolerating the issue of LGBT still remains a problem, because before even getting to the point of translating the LGBT content, there is this issue of how people perceive, the LGBT person in reality. Because we realize that in many African countries, there is a certain silence around, being an LGBT. And for many people, even the translation industry, their own personal bias may make them perceive LGBT people as, being a different group of people, a minority. I believe patient indicated the need for inclusivity, because so far in many African countries, being an LGBT person is dangerous. When we look at Senegal, they have many manifestations against LGBT. In Ghana, there were many manifestations against LGBT. And why is it important to take into consideration the social context and the social perception of LGBT? Is because at the end, the translator is a social being. He cannot detach himself from the social environment in which he's evolving. So naturally, the way that the society perceives the LGBT agenda will influence, his willingness to accept, his willingness to translate, and even the way he will do it. So far, and I will be glad to learn from the stories of all of the participants who are here, when you receive LGBT content, how do you feel? Let's even start there. How do you feel? Do you feel comfortable translating it? When it contradicts your personal belief, as one of our colleagues from Senegal, the Muslim, indicated, how do you respond? So I believe that the social perception of LGBT is very, very important. And I would like to bring some perspective in that regard. When we look at this map, which basically presents the penalties that any person who is an LGBT encounter. So you will see that in many African countries like Mauritania, like Nigeria, like Sudan, being an LGBT is so dangerous that you are even subject to a death sentence, basically, In some other country, like Sierra Leone, like Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, and Zambia, you are subject to 11 years of a lifelong sentence. In some countries, they are more lenient, like Egypt, Libya, you just get between 1 month and 10 years. In some other countries, like Angola, Namibia, and Mozambique, you have imprisonment, but the length has not yet been specified. So if we look carefully, in the whole of Africa, is especially South Africa, where we have existing policy that accommodate, the LGBT agenda. Why is it important for us to understand this legal context? I believe it is in a sense of, let's imagine you are a translator. You work for an African institution, and you are an in-house translator, and you are being requested to translate an LGBT text. If you say no, can your company or your contracting company decide to fire you because you said no to that, because I believe that at the end, the basis upon which the translator is able of navigating these sensitivities, the legal environment will influence his propensity to adopt one stand or the other. So again, as we can see here, at least 36 African nations have the death sentence, or strong penalty against homosexuality. Among those countries, we have Cameroon, which is my country of origin, and Ghana, where I am currently residing. Which means what? The LGBT, issue on its own is still something very sensitive, which must be acknowledged as such, and why it's important to understand that as translator, there is this need of navigating between one text and the other. This legal environment is very important. Number two, I believe we also listen to the fact that, some LGBT clients who are very proud of who they are, can also decide that if you're not an LGBT, you can't translate, an LGBT document, of course, because of the nuances and, the context and the peculiarity of those documents. So we should also not neglect in the course of the conversation the fact that it's not only translator who have power, the client also has influence, at the level of choosing who to assign the text to. And finally, the third aspect is the fact that in many African countries, while on a certain level, many are still very proud, of, like in South Africa, of promoting the agenda. In many African countries, there is these family values which are being promoted, and many still stand for what they call the God-ordained agenda, which forbids a same-sex relationship. So basically, here we are with such a complex issue. And I believe that as translator, we are to facilitate, engagement between two different linguistic environments. But I just want to conclude by saying that as the conversation is going on, we should acknowledge the social realities in which the translator finds himself. We should acknowledge the legal environment, which also comes with constraints that influence the willingness or not of a translator to engage into translating the text. And finally, the religious, implication that influence that. There are a lot of documents which address this issue in a proper level. I'm sharing some of them here to enable also African translator that we are to get insights, to get understanding, because most of the time we stand from far and we are judging. We stand from far and we have views, but it's very important to get closer to the issue, to understand, study it, so that we can have more stronger, and evidence or scientific understanding, of the conversation that is currently ongoing. I believe Isabella shared how, in her country, there are some inclusive terminology that have been already put in place. That could also be envisaged for Africa, but for it to be done, we need to overcome, those social, religious, and legal barriers that exist so far. So I will stop here and we'll give space for conversation. If you have any question, if you have your experiences as an African translator, of LGBT, or if you have your own view, we'll be glad, or I will be glad to hear from you so that we'll engage deeper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian, for the wonderful presentation. So we have some questions in the chat box. I think so far there's 2 questions. I've seen a patient respond to Dudu, but I think this is a question I can still put out there so that we can all, leave our comment. Let's all not be silent. This discussion is for all of us. Okay, so we have Danielle raising her hand. Danielle is going to take the floor. After us, we read the questions in the chat box. If you don't want to raise your hand, kindly leave your questions in the chat box. This meeting, this webinar is for you and I. Let's not be silent. Let's ask our questions. This is how we develop as professionals. So, Danielle, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to say something, and I'm very grateful for this topic. I thank Patient, he's my coach, my professional coach in translation, and I was really impressed when I saw the topic because it's sensitive, but we have to talk about it. You cannot push everything under the carpet every time because whether you like it or not, you are going to face a situation like that sooner or later. So be ready when the situation will come. And I am going to agree with what Christian, I think it's the name of the last speaker, what he just said about the fact that sometimes I'm just summarizing his idea because that's how I got it. You just condemn people from far, you reject it, we don't even want to understand. So what I'm going to recommend and what I always do when I see something that is different from me or someone different from me is to exercise empathy. Because you don't know the person's story, you don't know where they are coming from, you don't know why they are like that. Just have a human curiosity to know the person, to know what is going on, and you have to have empathy for them because they are human beings. First of all, they are human beings. No matter what is their sexual orientation, they are human beings and they deserve respect. And if you feel, let me be very sarcastic here, if you feel too holy to translate or interpret such people, no problem, just stay on your own, but don't condemn the colleagues that are doing that because all of us here, we went to school to earn a living. And if you're going to earn a living translating something that is politically incorrect, that's your choice. There is no judgment here. It's all about being professional. It's all about being exercising empathy to another human being. So I'm really grateful for this kind of platform, this kind of conversation. It's thought-provoking, and it is supposed to help us self-reflect before you label somebody LGBTQ plus and maybe you give them some other very shameful names. You need to question yourself. Why do you do that? Yeah, let's start with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for your comments. So we'll move to the questions. So I think Dudu is sending this question in response to, the first one he asked. So he's asking, so why patient? Okay, so I think patient has responded to it, but I think this is something he can also speak about so that it can be clarified. It says, so why patients? Did you say earlier that as translators, we should be like a bridge, and as humans, we should consider humanity first and not sexual orientation? Why then has the client the right to decide who should translate for them? And then the other way around does not. So the client has the right to decide who to translate, but you, the interpreter, you don't, or you, the translator, you don't. That's the question.
Should I try to answer?
Yeah. I think Christian's hands is raised up, so in case.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So I think that the decision power is shared. I personally believe that as a translator, nobody can force you to translate a document in principle because you're using your brain. So if your heart is not in it, Charlie, how would the translation be of quality? We all know the level of in-depth, the level of research, the level of concentration that is needed to have a quality output at the end. So if the heart is not in it, it's difficult. So I believe that any client will clearly understand that a translator or interpreter is not willing or ready for personal or moral reason, not to engage in a translating assignment, and I think it's all about knowing our values, knowing our limits, being principle driven, because something that I also notice, and we have to talk about it, is the fact that there is a lot of money that usually back up the LGBT agenda. So you'll find translators that, yes, they don't agree with their agenda or their values are against, but because there is a lot of money, that is coming with the project, they are very willing to forget their values and go in and translate. So at the end, it's a personal decision, but no matter what we decide, I believe it's important to respect, the sexual identity of others. Personally, I'm not for, violence against LGBT groups. That's their choice. And as a Christian, I believe that it's our responsibilities when we do not agree or support such, to rather than being violent. Because, for example, I've seen many cases of LGBT people being killed, being assaulted in various African countries. I think the best we can do is to stand in the gap and pray, and promote a more peaceful cohabitation with that, because I don't think that violence will some way be the answer. Yes, but ultimately it's a personal decision. It's a personal decision which comes at a cost. If you say no, the money that comes with it also, let's be willing to also let it go. But if you say yes, let's stand on it. Yes, so that's basically how I do see it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christian. So Paul's hand is raised up. Paul, you can speak now.
Okay, so what I would say is that um, if the one giving the work, it is the work of the person. He can decide who to do the work or not. And as Mr. Christian said, it's his work. He's paying for it, so he has that right. Notwithstanding, you are also the professional. You can also decide to refuse it or accept it. So it's a shared right. So nobody is under any obligation to do the work. So that is what I want to clarify, that it all depends on you receiving the work and the person bringing the work. So if you can decide who to translate the work, you can equally decide which work you work on. And I think that will do. When we get that understanding, we can all thrive well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Patient.
Yes, I think the same applies to any other domain in the translation industry. There are some translators who feel comfortable translating marketing materials, whereas other great translators are not good at translating marketing materials. Because there is a feel when you I, for instance, I love translating, just like Isabella. I love translating promotional or marketing content. That's my passion. Creating, crafting new sentences, new words, coining new expressions. That's my pleasure. But you will find another great translator, please, is a great translator, but who doesn't feel comfortable translating marketing materials, but is like translating more of technical documents. You see, these documents about construction, building devices, or building machinery. That's his pleasure, translating that kind of document. So you cannot be asking him, why don't you accept these marketing materials, whereas it is well paid? No, he's not feeling at doing it. He's not feeling comfortable doing it. So let's not just criminalizing those who are not translating LGBTQ materials. It's not something that is special or particular in itself or in its own. It's just part of the process, part of the profession. One can feel comfortable doing it. You do know that there are some people who can just listen to a word and start crying. So one can just be reading LGBTQ content and start crying because maybe is a deep lover or a deep faithful servant worshiper. He starts crying because he doesn't feel like translating such a content. You cannot condemn such a man. I think I uphold my Christian values, but I don't feel uncomfortable translating, like I said, LGBTQ document that fall under a descriptive content. Why? Because my own idea as well is to understand everything about that LGBTQ. What are their thoughts? What are their beliefs? How does their mind function? I want also to understand, and this is part of the professional curiosity we are expected to have, but nobody is obliged to go that way. If you feel like you are not up to holding or to reading such content, yes, you are free to say no, and be courageous enough, even if it's a current regular client like an agency. Tell them politely, tell the project manager that, I'm usually a good translator for you people. I usually deliver on time. I usually deliver good quality. But please, for this one, I must decline. You can even pretend that you are sick. You are sick for this period. Yes, that's a strategy. If you are afraid of losing that client, you can pretend that you are sick. And the PM won't care about it. Courage, take care. Let's see you on the next project. And that's okay. And that's okay if you're afraid of. But if you're courageous and bold enough, you can also tell him that, please, due to my convictions, beliefs, and values, please, I don't feel comfortable receiving these kind of projects anymore. Any other project, I'm your man, I'm your woman. But this kind of projects, please, count me off. Yeah.
Interesting. So I think Paul's question is related to Karen's question. We are going to take that question. I think that will be our last question. It says, as a translator or interpreter, we are called to be mediators and build bridges in society. However, we cannot control the flow of information or whoever consumes the final product, given that not everyone or not every society buys this idea. So how do we balance the aspects of partiality and personal beliefs with moral values? Is it far-fetched to say that every translator or interpreter or even language service provider is guilty of promoting LGBTQ ideologies directly or indirectly? I don't know if we got the question.
No. The question was addressed to me.
I mean, it's addressed to all the panelists. So
no, sorry, I didn't get the question. Sorry, Christian. Sorry, Isabella. Sorry, Rebecca. I don't know. I didn't get the question.
I didn't either. If you could maybe, if you could be maybe more specific.
Yes. So I think what Karen is focusing on is the fact that is it far-fetched to say that every translator or even a language service provider is guilty of promoting LGBTQ's ideologies directly or indirectly, given the fact that, we are building, we are bridging gaps as communicators, as translators, as interpreters. So in doing that, you translate one document to another, and this is being transferred to another person, and this information is being passed on from one person to the other. So in doing that, are we not promoting the ideologies of LGBTQ directly or even indirectly, because we think we are just bridging communication gaps?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yes. So I think that personally, I believe that anything we facilitate, we endorse. So as a translator, making a text, an LGBT text available in another language is a way, in whether directly or indirectly, of endorsing it, because we make it available to a bigger audience, to another, linguistic group. So indirectly, even if we may not see it intentionally, but the fact of making that text available to another group, is a way of promoting it. Or not, I think in promotion there's this intentionality. I think it's a way of endorsing the content indirectly. I like, for example, the example that Isabella shared, that because of her personal belief concerning tobacco consumption, she will not go into translating documents that are related to tobacco. Me also, because of my religious belief about LGBT, I will never translate a document related to LGBT or even recommend it to another translator. I will never do it. This is my personal belief. But even though I will not translate, I do not have a personal problem with LGBT people. It's just that from a religious standpoint or my moral conviction is stand against. And I know that me translating an LGBT document is indirectly endorsing it. So to avoid it, I will stay away, but I do not condemn the person bringing that document to me. I don't know if we clearly understand my position. So it's basically this way. Even in the Bible, God invites us to love others. And even God, he loves LGBT, people. If they are willing to come to him, he will always accept them. It is the practice. There's usually this thing that we says that love the sinner but reject the sin. So the person in its own, aside the sexual or identity, needs to be respected, has a dignity, but that sexual identity must be, I believe, must always be detached when addressing the issue of LGBT, because I believe that at the core, why is it that LGBT is even taboo or, such a big problematic? Is because it's all about sex. And we all know that sex in its own is always a topic of taboo, like at the core, even when we were growing. When I remember when there were people kissing on the TV, my parents would always ask me, close your eyes. They will put your hand on my face like this, because in the African context, sex is something that is being, portrayed as, being reserved when you are adult. Like social perception about it influence a lot how we respond to it, but at the end, I believe that translating or to answer to you, Paul, personally, I believe that translating or interpreting LGBT related stuff include promoting it, because in translating, you endorse what you translate. That's my view, by the way.
Sir, can I? Okay. So,
Okay.
per what you are saying, Mr. Christian, it's equally true. Now, if you go for a UN meeting, if somebody gives you a work to translate on nuclear bombs and those stuff, does it also signify that you are endorsing it?
Mhm.
Like Russian, you have a Russian document on nuclear bomb and how they plan to do it and those stuff. When you translate it, does it literally mean you are promoting the use of nuclear weapons against other nations?
Beautiful.
Is a rhetorical question. Oh, Mr. Christian, if you can help me out, thank you.
Yes, beautiful. I think I've been saying it over and over. At the end, it's all about perception. It's all about perception. It's all about, for example, someone who truly understands the implication of atomic or nuclear bombs, and who is against it, he will choose not to translate. But someone for whom it's just one topic among many others, he will go ahead and translate it. Let's not forget that at the core, a translator is a person who has experiences, who belong to a society, who has experiences. So those experiences fashion the lens through which we approach the text, So for example, if you take a Japanese, let's say translator who has been whose parents have been victim of, the effects of the atomic bomb, and you ask him to translate a document promoting, the use of atomic, for military war, because of that background, that he has seen people physically, he has evidence of how people suffer from it. He can choose with that context, not to translate. But if you take, let's say, a Cameroonian who has not even seen atomic, you just know that these things there, you just see it on TV, but he has not really had the experience of atomic bomb. He will not have the same approach, the same perception of atomic, realities like a Japanese who has been victim of it, so their response will be different. It's the same way someone can be a churchgoer, and for him, LGBT is just a group among many others. So for him, as far as the thing is giving him business and money, he's fine with it. He doesn't want to know whether there are implications or this. He's okay. Some people even have Some Christians even have LGBT friends, and for them is just someone who is just different from me, But other Christians will be so radical that they will go to the point of using violence, So at the end, it's all about perception. And because it's all about perception and experiences, the response will always vary from one individual to another. And that's the reason why at the end, the decision will always stand up. The translator who is faced with the situation. What are your value? Are you a value-driven translator? Are you a value-driven language professional? If you are value-driven, those values will influence your decision-making, and the outcome, So at the end, whether we accept or not are based on our value and our experiences. And of course, our experiences shapes our value. So that's basically how I say there's not a one straight answer, but depending on where we are coming from, our social context, our history, our personal experiences, it influences how we respond to the issue. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christian. So I think Patience understand. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yes. Christian talked about promoting a nuclear bomb and talking about the Japanese. But the same Japanese can accept a project dealing with nuclear bomb that is instead talking about helping people face the consequences, the dire consequences of the nuclear bomb. And that's where, as Christian underscored it, is a matter of choice, of personal choice. Where do you find yourself? That's why I'm sharing this. There are different levels in any domains. You have any sensitive domains have different levels of personal engagement, because a translator is first of all an individual, therefore a human being having his own or their own emotions, their own feeling, their own experiences, their own past. So how do you feel when you face an LGBTQ content? Are you okay with it? No matter your religious background, no matter your values, no matter, are you okay with it? If you're okay translating it, then go ahead and make sure not to condemn another one who is not doing the same. Then vice versa. If you are not okay for translating any LGBTQ document, please don't condemn anyone who feels comfortable doing that. At the end of the day, saying yes or no is a matter of courage. Christian boldly said a couple of minutes ago that he would never translate an LGBTQ document. That is a courageous act. That's bravery. Many of us wouldn't probably say or assert who they are and what are their stand on that issue. That is a proof of courage. But another one also who says he will translate, who sits here, opens the camera and tells us that he will translate it. That is also a matter of courage, because he is telling us that no matter what you people are saying about your own values, religious or any other kind of values, I will be translating. And that is also courage. So you have to respect any translator, any professional in his own decision, because this is first of all a personal decision.
Thank you so much, Patient. Thank you. I hope I didn't cut you off. Are you done with your submission?
No, I wanted just to say that you say LGBTQ is also a matter of choice.
Okay.
The guy and girls have decided to choose, let me repeat it, they have decided to choose that they will change their sexual identity. You see, the binary have changed to non-binary. So they have chosen to become non-binary. Why not us being able to choose to either translate the result or the product of their decision, or not to translate the product? That is also up to us. That is also our choice. We have the right to choose, as well as they have the right to choose anything. And the outcome is that what at the end of the day will you feel? Are you feeling comfortable doing that? If you are okay, then probably you can go ahead, probably.
All right. Thank you so much, Patience. I mean, it's been a really lovely discussion today. I'm sure we have all learned so much. There are still some questions, but our time is far gone. It's far gone. We wish we could take all your questions, but we are going to be sharing the slides with you. We are going to be sharing the slides with you. We are going to be sharing everything with you. So don't worry. At the right time, I mean, if you need any responses to your questions, we are going to link you up with these speakers. They are going to respond to you directly. So don't hesitate to, reach out to me on the Mati platform. I've shared the links to the Mati platform. I'm going to share it again with you. But thank you all so much for joining today's conversation. And just a few announcements before we go. I posted in the page that, the Afrolinguals magazine is still on. This is a magazine that is going to benefit all African freelancers, language service providers, linguists. If you are a translator and an interpreter, I'm sure you want to know, all the news that is going on in the African language industry. And you haven't seen any magazine of that sort. So that is what we are bringing out. So we are still reaching out to students, freelancers who want to contribute to this magazine. So if you have an opinion piece, you have an article, you can still reach out to me. I'm going to be leaving my email in the chat box. You can reach out to me at languages@kabodgroup.com. So you can reach out to me and send it to me, and then we are going to review it and then get back to you. So don't hesitate to do that. And also, we mentioned that there's a Mati website initiative that is ongoing. We want to make it in the form of, I'm sure we all use pros.com, Upwork, and other Fiverr and all those kind of platforms. So we want to create one that will be for African languages alone, for African languages. So if you want gigs, you want jobs, you want to find jobs, and you're an African, you can just reach out to us via that platform. This is the time you can even subscribe to be a volunteer. So what we are looking out right now for is volunteers. We want volunteers who will be interested in contributing their quota to make this vision a reality. The Mati website initiative is going to be like the pros.com, the African version. So we sent links out there for you to register, for you to fill the survey form and contribute in various capacities. So you are going to, I think the links will equally be shared in the chat, but it should be shared now in the chat box, so that if we are interested, we can fill it. We can fill it. And also, as I mentioned, there are some of us who joined and our names have still not been changed. We'll be sending out your certificates of participation right after this meeting. So let's do well to rename ourselves if we can. Let's rename ourselves if we can. Rename yourself, and then you can now have your certificates. And also drop your email. Someone mentioned that they don't know why people are dropping their emails in the chat box. We are dropping our emails so that we can receive our certificates. So kindly do also drop your emails, and then you receive your certificates. And also, for our next careless talk, I'm sure we all enjoyed this one, didn't we? Hey, I want reactions. Let's all not be silent. Drop emojis, I'm sure we all enjoyed this one. Yeah, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. So we don't miss out on the next one. It's happening on the 13th of September, and we are going to be looking at how to succeed in the language learning market. So apart from the fact that we are freelancers, it has to do with languages. So we want you to be able to succeed in the language learning market as well. Don't just be a freelancer. Don't just be a translator. Also look at, teaching others to also have another proficiency in another language. So that is what we are looking at. So let's watch out for the next KLS talk. And for the Mati WhatsApp group and then the Alerts LinkedIn platform, which was shared, I don't know if we saw it, but we are going to reshare it in the chat box. The IT team, if you could drop the announcements in the chat box so that they can click on the link, it will be great, so that you can just join. You can just join using that platform. You can just join using the links, so that we'll still keep on, discussing other issues in the Mati platform. I mentioned that this topic came as a result of our discussion from the Mati platform. So this is an opportunity for you to join the platform. kindly join the platform, and then we'll keep our conversation ongoing. I'm sure you love. If you love this webinar, just drop comments in the chat. But before we leave, please don't leave yet. We'd like to take pictures. We'd like to take pictures, so don't leave yet. Christian's hand is up.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. And again, thank you for all of our panelists and everyone who joined. It's a real pleasure of having such platform to share knowledge and learn about current issues that affect the language service industry on the continent. So basically, I just want to reinforce again, this platform and have live feedback about its relevance. So basically, this is the idea. We notice that we have a lot of African language professional on the continent, but there was not really a platform where their expertise was visible, especially in the digital space. So when you go on pros.com, when you go on uread.com, and most of the job platforms, you can easily miss those who have African language expertise. So at the level of Cabot Language Services, we're envisioning developing a platform like PROS, but that will be less complex and dedicated only to African language, professionals. So those who have expertise in translating in African languages like Twi, Swahili, and also African varieties of, of Western language. For example, Cameroonian French, Ivorian French, and all of those things. But a platform that will be mainly dedicated to facilitate, advertising of language professionals. So we would like to know, what do you think of such platform? Do you think it's going to bring an added value to the language industry? We will be glad to, hear your views on this before we invest more resources into whether developing or dropping this project. So if you want to share your views lively, please don't hesitate. You can just put on your mic and share if this is something you find relevant, and how you think something as such could be useful.
Yeah, so just as Christian has said, I mean, if you think this platform will be very useful for you or for even us as we are here, kindly raise up your hand to say something, or you can just even leave, an emoji in the chat box. We are going to reach out to you. We are going to be sending the survey form to you because we want to know how you can contribute to make this initiative a success. So kindly do that. If you want to even comment, okay, there's Patient. Patient wants to comment.
Yes, congrats to you, Christian. Congrats to you, Rebecca. That is a very awesome initiative. That's from my own point of view. That is a very great thing. We have been thinking alike without never meeting each other. That's amazing, because we're thinking of such a platform, and we are even working at developing it. But as I usually say, many initiatives are great for any industry. If you look at the American environment, there are so many translation agencies, so many translation companies who live together and who convene some events, some major events like the gala event. Isabella certainly knows what I mean. We also have the American Translators Association that usually gather several translation companies. So those initiatives will let our leaders understand that translators are not transparent. They are visible, because this is what will make us more and more visible to our authorities. And this also helps me to ask Rebecca if it's confirmed that the video can be shared on our YouTube channel later on. Is it possible?
Yes, it's possible. It's being recorded, okay. So you are going to receive it at the end of the session, so you can share it with the community.
Thanks so much for the exception, because I remember it was not easy to convince you. You are a great lady in terms of negotiation. So thanks a lot for accepting it. And this YouTube channel was meant to put our profession on the spot, under the spotlight, so that people can know that we do exist and we do great things. Congrats once again with Cabot Language Group and Services, Christian and Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Patient, for your wonderful words. It's such a pleasure to listen to you. And thank you so much to my wonderful panelists. Before we end the session completely, does anyone have anything else to say on this initiative? Or that is all? Okay. So thank you all for joining in today's discussion. It's been awesome, just as Patient said. It's been great listening to these wonderful speakers. Isabella, Christian, Patient, thank you so much for honoring our invitation, and for our wonderful interpreters. So our interpreters in the house are volunteers, and it's lovely to have people who want to contribute to great initiatives. Thank you so much, Aurelia. Thank you so much, Irish, for volunteering to interpret. And I must say, you are doing a very great job. And for my IT team, thank you so much for your efforts in putting this webinar together. Just as I've said, don't miss the one on 13 September. It's going to be a very great session as this. So, watch out for our flyers, watch out for our registration links, and do all to join the meeting when it's time. Thank you all so much. Let's keep on building the African language industry. Don't forget that it's our effort that is going to build it. So, let's put in our small quota. Yes. So before we go, I'd like all our panelists to give us, their closing remarks. Isabella, I want to hear from you before you leave. It's been wonderful having you.
Well, thank you so much. It was really wonderful for me as well. I learned a lot from you guys, and it's always wonderful to connect with colleagues, even when they have different ideas from mine. It's always a learning experience, and when you learn something, it's always good. And I am amazed at the amount of initiatives that you guys have. I would say keep going, because it's wonderful to see all these platforms coming in, collaborations coming in. It's fantastic. So I wish you all the best and the biggest success ever. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, really. It's been an honor.
It's been an honor also having you on our platform. And Patience, your remarks?
No, I'm so grateful, and I'm so fascinated by what I've seen. And congrats, seeing young Africans working this hard to put our profession under the spotlight. I feel very humbled, and I can just say kudos to the initiative. And I will be available to support anytime you may need my help. Thanks a lot. Congrats.
And Christian?
Yeah, so thank you again, Rebecca, for putting this together. It was a real pleasure engaging. And indirectly, I'm also part of ALCA, the Association of Language Company in Africa, which we put together last year. And I would like to invite all the language service professionals who are here to our upcoming conference, which is in 1 week exactly. It starts from the 28th to 29th August. So if you would like to have more, insight about what is happening in the language service industry in Africa, I really invite you to join that conference. I'm going to share the link in the group for those of you who would like to register and attend, but basically a lot is happening in the language service industry. At the level of Cabot, one of our vision is to build the African language industry, because we believe that there is so much potential that is being untapped. And unless we are united, unless we are structured, we will be missing a lot. And ALCA, the Association of Language Company in Africa, is one beautiful platform to make that possible. So we'll invite all of you. Don't miss the ALCA conference. It's the first edition, and we will be glad to see you there. And as Rebecca has indicated, if you are a content writer, if you have your own experiences as a translator, as a linguist, as a professional in the language industry, we would like to hear from you. A lot is happening, but we need to share our stories. We need to share our practices. And Cabot has put in place systems and platforms to facilitate that. And we are glad to collaborate in this with people like Patient, people like Isabella and Gala and many others, in the language service industry to strengthen, the visibility of our profession, and enable us to win bigger and more competitive market, but we need to be one in doing that. And the contribution, ideas of everyone are welcome in making that a reality. There's a lot that needs to be done, but together we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. Indeed, together we can. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events. Let's have a great day and stay connected. Before we go, if you can turn on, your camera, kindly do so. We want to take a group picture. I hope my IT team are connected. We want to take a group picture. Please turn on your camera if you can. Jerry, Mr. Harris, can we take the picture now? Please turn on your camera if you can. Kindly turn on your camera if you can.
Yes.
Okay. So Jerry, Harris, should we smile now? Our cheeks are paining. Okay, so everyone say cheese.
Hey, it's
I hope the picture has been taken now, Mr. Jerry and Mr. Harris.
So
Are we
people have
good to go?
on Karin Gala, Biko Ijaka, Emilinje,
Yeah.
Mr. Frimpong, Gracian, Ino, Prince, Uriela, Tumani.
You reached. Thank you so much. Aurelia, thank you so much for interpreting for us. Chris, everyone, we can't mention all your names, but thank you so much for honoring our invitation and being participants. We can't wait to see you at our next KLS talk. So kindly prepare for that. So, till next time, let's keep building the African language industry and see you at our next KLS talk. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christian.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.